And let's get started with the show, everyone. Woo! Welcome, everyone, to ThursdAI. Today, September 19th. Jesus, September 19th. The sun is setting earlier and earlier. It's becoming colder in many parts of at least where I am. And yeah, we're steady into our fall season here and ThursdAI. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We have our guests already on stage here. We have, as always, we have my co-host Nistan. Nistan, welcome. How are you, buddy?
I'm great.
Did you switch to your podcast mic yet or not yet?
No, not.
All right, we need you.
Let's not jinx it.
Let's not jinx.
We have a 5-star rating somehow.
Yeah, folks, on this topic, Nistan just DM'd me out of the blue. Hey, I just noticed that we have a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It really helps if you're not subscribed to ThursdAI on podcast, you should be. If you're joining us only on the live show, that's awesome. But you should also know that we have, this is a podcast. This gets sent to all of the podcasty areas as well. And it would really help if you give us a 5-star. If you enjoy the show, if you're here every week, we have a sterling 5-star rating right now, as Nistan pointed out. We don't want to ruin this with more technical issues, but it would help if you leave a comment and give us a 5-star rating. It actually helps other folks discovering this as well. So Nistan, yeah, you're right, but yeah, we need to send you this mic. Next up, we have another co-host of ours, Wolf from Raven Wolf, all the way from Germany. What's up, man? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Doing better? Getting better.
Yeah.
You're excited about this week? You have a bunch of other stuff you sent me that you're excited about.
So much stuff happening again.
Yeah, as always. All right, so we have all from, and now we have already a few guests of ours on stage here. So first of all, I want to say welcome to Jingyang Lin, or I guess Justin, depends on how you want to go by, from the Alibaba Qwen team. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, great to see you guys. Yeah, I'm Justin from the Qwen team.
You guys have been busy this week or this past few weeks. And this time, luckily, you didn't drop anything exactly on ThursdAI. You dropped it yesterday, so we actually had some time to read through, or I guess a couple of days ago. To read through, get to know some stuff. I saw Nistan already ran some of your stuff. So we're going to talk about the Qwen releases with you immediately after the show starts as well. So welcome, and feel free to invite Banyuan and like some other folks as well if they want to come. And we have other dear guests of the show, and I think folks know Nous Research. Folks who come to ThursdAI know Nous Research since before you were an official company. I think this is when you were like a ragtag team on Discord somewhere. But now we have Karan, the co-founder, and Shannon, who's going by Max Paperclips, to talk about some stuff that you guys announced yesterday. Karan, how are you, man? I know it's early, and I appreciate the fact that you're here so early after the party yesterday. How are you doing?
I'm good. I think we're all a little tired, but really excited to talk about Forge. As well, Shannon is in the audience right now.
Shannon's already on stage with us. What's up, Shannon?
Hey, how is everyone?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Updating, man.
Good. Little bit tired too.
All right, so we're gonna make it work. We'll make it work. I'll bring the energy, and you'll bring the answers. It's gonna be fine. And I think that this is all the introductions, folks. Everybody in the audience. So if you have questions for our guests, now would be the time to think about them. So with Justin, we're going to talk about everything that they released with Qwen 2.5. There's a bunch of releases that we're going to cover all of them. And with Mephisto, Karan, and Shannon, we're going to talk about Nous Researchers' newest, I guess, release, teaser, waitlist, product. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on there. We're also going to talk about the general concept of test time compute or inference time compute, Karan, because I heard you talk about this yesterday, and I want to bring this live to the audience as well. And with this, I think we are good to do our regular kind of TLDR of everything that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to get started talking about open source. Yeah, so I think let's go. Here it is. Here's the TLDR. Here's everything that we've talked about on ThursdAI, September 19th. Well into the fall here. And we started with open source, and we talked about open source for a long time. For almost an hour and a half, we talked about open source. We had 2 big interviews today on ThursdAI, and we started with the biggest open source news this week from our friends at Alibaba Qwen team with an incredible Qwen 2.5 models drop for Qwen 2.5 to Qwen 2.5 Coder and Qwen 2.5 Math. In addition to this, they also finally open sourced Qwen 2 VL72B, so the best open source vision model is also now open weighted with the Qwen license as well. It was trained on a massive 18 trillion tokens in this data set. So we had a great chat with Justin Lin from the Qwen team talking about their approach, the reason why they chose to release the one main model and then two specific coder and math models as well. The Qwen 2.5 72 billion parameter is now competitive, if not beating Llama 3.1 405 billion. Significantly larger model on multiple benchmarks like MMLU Redux and Math and MBPP, and it gets very close in GPQA as well. It's a very significant jump in capabilities from the Qwen team. We had a great chat with Jun Yang, Justin Lin from the Qwen team as well. Definitely give it a listen, and kudos to the whole team for this massive release. After that conversation, we covered that QtAI, a French company, finally gave us open weights for Moshi and Mimi, the codex. Moshi is a end-to-end voice chat model. It's a 7.6 billion parameter. They gave us two instruct models, Moshiko and Moshika. This is an end-to-end speech-to-speech foundational model. This is a model that understands you speaking and then speaks back, so generates an actual voice back to you. This model is tiny, and while it's not the best at logic, so you don't expect GPT-4o or o1 quality here, this is a novel and completely open architecture that they've released in the CC by NC license, so not commercial, but you can use this for research. It's a unified and integrated approach. The whole pipeline is built into the model, so it doesn't use text-to-speech or speech-to-text in there. They also released They have the Helium Transformer and the Mimi codec as well. So they open source the Mimi novel neural audio codec called Mimi, and it's all combined in a single architecture. Definitely worth looking at, playing with this at moshi.chat or downloading this, and it runs with MLX, runs on your machine. As Wolfram Ravenwolf here on stage said, it's uncanny when it starts reacting to what you're asking about this from this model before you finish your sentence. It really feels weird, the reaction response. They claim a theoretical end-to-end response with 160 or so milliseconds, and practical is around 260 milliseconds. Also, almost as breaking news, just like a day before ThursdAI, Microsoft released a new approach to to mixture of experts. It's called Green MoE. It's a gradient-informed MoE approach, and we had a chat with the lead author here, with Lucas or Liuan Liu from Microsoft, that talked to us about this effort. This new MoE approach is a significant jump in capabilities, beating Phi medium and Phi small on MMLU, and it almost I think it's like 78 or something in MMLU, and it's a very tiny MoE. 6.6 billion active parameters, and gets 79.4 in MMLU, beating Phi 3 small, beating Phi 3 medium, beating DeepSeek. It's quite an incredible achievement there, and we had a chat with Leon on how they achieved this. This model was trained on the same data set that Phi 3 was trained on, so the tiny stories or textbooks is all you need data set, and impressive jumping capabilities. And they're comparing this. Obviously, Phi MoEs were also existing, and now it's a significantly smaller MoE that, using novel kind of techniques, is beating the Phi models as well. And then we had a great conversation with Karan, co-founder of Nous Research, and Shannon Sands, the lead developer on the Forge. Forge is Nous Research recently yesterday announced inference engine. It's going to be a UI and also an API behind the scenes that's able to achieve incredible performance on AI ME evaluation, beating beating OpenAI O1 with one pass. It's quite incredible. They're doing chain of thought reasoning in that inference, but not built into the model like O1. They're running behind the scenes. They're doing Monte Carlo tree search as well, MCTS. And we had a great conversation with those folks about where they're planning to take this Forge product of theirs going forward and how it performs that well. And it's quite incredible, kind of the roadmap they have there. The waitlist for that product is open for ThursdAI. I will add this to the show notes as well. You'll be able to register and get access soon. The benefits of using that, even though it's not a full model for chain of thought, is you can actually see the chain of thought reasoning, whereas OpenAI O1, for example, hides that chain of thought reasoning because it's their competitive advantage. Nous wants you to be able to play with this. In addition to that, Forge also has memory and graph database, so you can see which memories are attached to which things, and has code interpreter capabilities. You'd be able to actually ask it to run code for you. It currently supports Python. You'd be able to paste functions. You'd be able to run them. Quite an impressive announcement from Nous, and we can't wait to actually get our hands on it. As I said, for ThursdAI folks, you have a waitlist registration link, and you'd be able to play around with this. But they're doing a careful release because this is the first time they're actually not releasing models. They're releasing a product and hosting something on their own. But definitely a great conversation with the folks from Nous as well. In the this week's buzz category for weights and biases, where I update on everything that weights and biases related, I talked about the hackathon that we have coming up on this Saturday. I'm actually here in San Francisco, speaking to you live from the Latent Space Studio. Shout out to Solaris in San Francisco for hosting me, and Swix for providing the space. I'm here for the hackathon that's happening on Saturday and Sunday. We called it the Judgment Day Hackathon with weights and biases, all about LLM as a judge. And if you're here in the Bay Area, you're more than welcome to come. There's still a few spots left for you and your team to win awesome prizes. I think we have around $5,000 worth of prizes overall, which is an incredible hint. We're going to make you a significantly better coder with our prizes as part of them. We're still working on some final details, but the hackathon is going to be awesome. We have incredible judges from this industry that are going to come and judge the project. So if you have any idea about improving LLM as a judge, or building UI for that area, or using our Weave product in a novel way or something, please come and join our hackathon. It's going to be very fun. We're going to feed you. It's going to be awesome. And the second thing in this week's buzz from Weights and Biases is that our new RAC course is about to go live at 1b.me/courses. It's our courses platform. It's going to be free. This course is already between 1,500 to 2,000 people pre-signed up, so it's not even live yet, because it's incredible instructions from Cohere and Wiviate and two folks from my team on the growth team in Weights and Biases. This course is about to go live. It's going to teach you everything from very basic RAG to advanced RAG techniques that folks have collected across all those companies, and definitely worth checking this out. The focus of this, at the end of the show, was on the video category. Generative video is having its moment in the sun, and multiple announcements this week from the generative video updates. Specifically, we had a open source model that does video, image to video. It's called Cog Video X, 5 billion parameters. It's a tiny model that you can run on your hardware. It's going to take you a while, but then you'll be able to generate videos from images, which is super cool. And so you can use this in a pipeline of using something like Flux with your own face and then generating like yourself blinking or something like this. So Cog Video X was released this week. In addition to this, the Google announced that YouTube is going to add generative image and generative video features into YouTube Shorts via a feature called Dream Screen, where YouTube will allow creators to actually click a few buttons and have backgrounds generated by their Imagen 3 image diffusion model, or their video diffusion models for videos for up to 6 seconds long as cuts between the YouTube Shorts, which is quite incredible. As you think about this, as we're playing with this technology for less than a year, and now YouTube is going to implement this in the product. And we also had a bunch of other updates from this area where all of the three leading providers of video models right now, Runway, Gen 3, Dream Machine from Luma, and Kling, all three of them are now going to offer their services via APIs. Which developers would be able to build into products as well. And in addition, we had a few more updates from this area from Runway, where they announced a new video-to-video capability. So instead of just uploading an image and saying, hey, turn this image into a walking whatever, now you'd be able to actually like upload a video and then ask it to make this person a spaghetti person, for example. That's super, super cool and allows for a lot of more artistic expression for many folks who use these models for creative pursuits. And I think that's pretty much it. And so I think it's time to start with our favorite corner of ThursdAI, which is open source. Open source AI, let's get it started. Let's get it started. It only makes sense to start with the biggest release of open source this week, and this biggest release comes from Alibaba Qwen team. And I'm very excited to, as always, have Justin here from the Qwen team to talk to us about the releases. Justin, I don't think you need introduction to the... As far as I'm looking at the crowd, the folks who are here are the usual crowd from ThursdAI, so welcome everyone. If you're new here, you're going to listen to some very nice conversations about some advanced topics. But Justin, just in case people still don't know who you are, feel free to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the folks. And then let's talk about the amazing drop of releases you guys did.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, very happy to be here on ThursdAI. As always, I am always here. Yeah, I am Justin Jinyanglin from the Qwen team. I am working in large language models and large multimodal models. And recently, in recent months, we have some releases, and we all announced at ThursdAI. So just watch ThursdAI and listen to us, and you'll know what our latest progress. Yeah.
And this time, as I said a little bit in the beginning, you guys released like a little bit ahead so that we'll actually have time to play with the models, read the releases, because this is an overwhelming release. You guys released a bunch of stuff, and I'm assuming you worked for it for a while. So let's maybe start walking through what actually was released. Qwen 2.5, a series of models, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different sizes, correct?
Yeah, for 7 sizes for the large language models. Yeah.
That's crazy. From as low as 500 million, which actually didn't had a chance to run this. I know, Nistan, you ran the smaller one, all the way up to 72B. And I think you brought back the mid-size as well, which wasn't there in the previous releases, correct?
Yeah, previously we didn't release like 14 billion and 32 billion because, honestly, we do not have enough GPUs to train the models. But there are a lot of voices in the community just telling us that why not 14B and 32B? We need these two models, and then we endeavor for it and bring them to you. Yeah.
That's very interesting that folks are actually asking. But kudos to you guys that listen to the community and what they want. So let's talk about what's new in this. This is not like a major release. It's not Qwen 3. It's 2.5. We had Qwen 2 before. I guess we had 2.1 if I'm not mistaken. Even we went up all the way up to 2.1. So talk to us. What's new? I saw that it trained on significantly more data, all the way up to 18 trillion tokens, something like this.
Yes, it's up to 18 trillion tokens. It's really crazy because previously we only had 7 trillion tokens, and then we enlarged it by multiple times to 18 trillion tokens, and we found very significant improvements. Yeah, especially for the medium-sized models like 14 billion and 32 billion. If you try these two, I think you'll somehow be surprised in comparison with other sizes. Yeah.
Interesting. And I know that data is usually proprietary, and as much as you can in terms of like sharing. Any synthetic mix in there as well? Do you guys use any synthetic generation for enlarging this to 14? Because 18 trillion. I think it's more than Llama was trained on, correct? Llama was like 15 trillion tokens.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, without giving out too much of the stuff that you can't give out, where does one obtain 18 trillion tokens of data at the end of 2024? Any of the synthetic?
Yeah, we have some. Generally, we crowd more data, and we have better classifiers and scorers, so we can record better data from the web cloud. There are actually a lot of data, but there are only a few that you can use for pre-training the language models. And previously, we do not have enough good classifiers for collecting these data. But today, we have better stuff like this, better classifiers and better language model-based scorers, so we can get the data to put it into pre-training. And for synthetic data, it's mostly about mathematics and coding. I think I previously told you about Qwen 2 Math. The goal of Qwen 2 Math building it is not only for the open source or just to show that we can reach state of the art, but actually we would like it to build synthetic data for us, and it actually created new data for us. So we have Qwen 2.5 Math. You'll find that Qwen 2.5 Math actually surpasses Qwen 2 Math by a large margin. And it is because we are using Qwen 2 Math for the synthetic data, and we put the synthetic data as well into the language model. So you can find that this time the language model has great improvements in mathematics and coding as well. Yeah.
So even the main version is now improved in mathematics because of the work previously you did with Qwen2 Math?
Yeah, I think the Qwen2 Math has great contribution to the data because it's generating, for example, you can collect a lot of mathematics problems, but you can use Qwen2 Math to generate a lot of responses. And I don't know if you have noticed, we didn't really pay attention to it, is that we have released another model, which is a reward model, which is a mathematics-specific reward model. We use the mathematics reward model somehow just like choosing which path is the best, so we can have something like rejection fine-tuning, which means that you use some best sampling, you use the reward model to score which is the best, and choose the best path for the target answer and put it into the pre-training or continue training and also post-training to improve the performance of. Yeah.
I actually didn't have this in my notes, folks, so you're hearing here it first. There's an additional model that I missed that's also a reward model. Okay, so in addition to Qwen 2.5, the general models, which is like 7 sizes, the smallest one is 500 million parameters. And there's one for 1.5. You also have two new specific models, and all in 3 sizes as well. It looks like Qwen 2.5 and Qwen 2.5 Math. So we talked about Math as beating the previous one. Talk to me about the Coder one, and Nistan, I think you've used that one as well, right?
Dude, I've used all 5 of them. Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to me about the Coder specifically, because we saw from DeepSeek before, DeepSeek Coder was like for the longest time like one of the top open source coding models, and then they've deprecated that and moved it into the main model, the DeepSeek 2.5 as well. Now you're doing basically the split. Is there plans to then bring it back into the main model as well? What's the benefits of having a specific model for coding? Talk to me about the decision to release 2 separate continued train models.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that we previously released Code Qwen 1.5. Code Qwen 1.5 is actually very popular in the coding community. We found that there are a lot of people paying attention to the coding specific model because they would like to use it for coding assistant. And if you just use a general language model for 7 billion or 14 billion, you cannot achieve very good performance in coding, just Claude Sonnet or somehow like that. So they need something like this. And there are a lot of people just asking us that, where is Code Qwen 2 when? They were just being asking us. So this time we are also building Qwen 2.5 coder. And also this time, we would like to make it helpful for the synthetic data, because Code Qwen 1.5 also built synthetic data for our pre-training as well. So you can find out our improvements in coding. Somehow it's a bit contributed to by the Code Qwen 1.5 and Qwen 2.5 coder. We would like it to be a better one. We first train a small one, 1.5B, to make sure that our coding data quality is all good. So this is somehow an experimental one. And for the 7 billion, it's something that people usually use for the coding assistant to make it into their code editor and to help them coding somehow as well. But we also have a new one, 32 billion. We are still training it. We are still cooking. We need some time, maybe 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, we will release also the 32B. Yeah.
Amazing. So a little bit about evals, and then we'll move on to chat with folks from News about some of the stuff that they've announced as well. So 18 trillion tokens, context length is 128 as usual as well. One thing, Junyang, I wanted to talk, so a little bit of comparison to the previous Qwen, MMLU, significant boost from 64 to 71 on MMLU Pro, which is very hard. MMLU Pro on 72 billion parameter Qwen 2 gets very close to Llama 3.1 405B. At 73. But on MMLU Redux, you're beating this. GPQA is a difficult one because it requires like a lot of data. You get 49 points over there, beating Qwen 2 with 42, getting close to Mistral Large, beating Llama 405B as well. Very impressive stats all around. Can you talk about some evals that was maybe surprising to you that you did very well on?
Yeah. I think this time we still pay attention to things like MLU and GPQ and math, but somehow we think that these evaluations are better for something like base language model. And if you use it for instruction tuned language model, it may somehow you worry about the things like overfitting or it is not just fitting the needs for the common users. So we pay a lot of attention to the last 4 one, including if eval, which is evaluating the instruction following issues. Because previously we have chatted with the user of Qwen 2, they just reported that your models still don't work that well in instruction following. So we have improved quite a lot in instruction following. So we have much better performance in if eval. And for arena hard is somehow very similar to the evaluation of the chatbot arena. So if you reach arena hard with a high score, you'll probably get a good score in chatbot arena, which is preferred by the human users. So arena hard is also very important to us. So you'll find that for the arena hard, the Qwen, in comparison with Qwen 272B, we have reached 81.2, but for Qwen 272B, it is just only 48.1.
Double the score on Arena Hard. This is crazy. 48.1 to 81.2.
Yeah, somehow for this evaluation, you cannot linearly evaluating it, but it's still a very large margin in comparison with 48.1. And we have been using the Qwen 272B base language model and using new instruction tune data, but we can only reach like 64, 65 or something like that, but we cannot surpass 70. But this time we are using Qwen 2.5, the base language model, Qwen 2.5 72B, to build a Qwen 2.5 72B instruct. We can actually reach 81.2. We are also using some IL stuff, GRPO, to improve its performance and its alignment to human preference. Yeah, we are very satisfied with the performance in Arena Hard specifically. Yeah.
That's incredible. So great releases overall. There's tons of models that you guys released. Nistan, go ahead. Let's finish up a few questions and we'll move on to our other guests. But very impressive release, Junyang, and shout out to the team for working this hard. I saw some folks were like releasing. We're gonna go to sleep now. It's been a lot. So a huge amount of releases. Nistan, go ahead and give us comments as well, Nistan, because you use some of these models now for a while.
Yeah, the 32B is crazy. I was using that yesterday. It's also 128K context, so you can just I was dumping in my docs and my code base and then like actually asking it questions. And it's really practical if you have a Mac Studio or something that's not that powerful and doesn't have that many flops. 1.5 coder blew me away. I didn't expect that to be that good, and I had not tried the previous one. But OSS, these are completely new models, right? Like we can't really merge these with the previous Qwen. That would not work at all. These are completely trained on new data sets, right?
Yeah, it is trained on new data sets, and you can't merge with Code Qwen 1.5 because Code Qwen 1.5 previously we have some problems with the tokenizer. We are using something like sentence piece tokenizer, but this time for Qwen 2.5 coder we are using our Qwen tokenizer back. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good to know. And the other thing is that right now on the leaderboard, the top models are actually merges and Frankensteins of Qwen that have been fine-tuned on top.
Oh,
and
cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to know that. And you guys also released Qwen 2 VL, and that's still that one is pretty. It's on another level. It's like I don't want to use anything else, and I'm annoyed because the 7B was great. Okay, I can work with this. I can try it, but like,
it's a bit too
so
small.
Better.
Yeah, I think 72B is a good one. Yeah, 7B is too small. Yep.
So just for context for folks in the audience, Junyang, last time you were here, we talked about the Qwen 2 VL releases, and you released multiple ones. 72B wasn't open-weighted back then, and you hinted that it may come soon. So soon is now, actually, right? Like 72B is finally out. What is the license for that one? Is that the Qwen license or Apache license for the 72B?
Yeah, we're still using the Qwen license.
For
the very large one. Yeah, using the Qwen license.
It's still, though, it's very impressive that folks can actually like download and use this one because we are getting a few other like multimodal models around the world, but this one is a very good one. I agree, Nistan. Thank you for bringing this up. Wolfram, follow up on some Qwen models from your end, from the Reddit community. What's the take? What's the temperature?
Yeah, just a comment about the multilinguality, which is excellent. I've been using the 72B Q4KM for maybe an hour, a bit more, and I could not find a single mistake in German. So that is excellent and has been improved more than even Llama 70B. So excellent. Just wanted to say that for those who care about multilinguality.
Yeah, sure. We care about the multilinguality very much. Yeah, but this time we did not add more languages, still 29 languages. But our models are natively very good at Western European languages. So for German, I think it is generally good. But I didn't really test it. I don't know German very much.
Yep. So we have somebody here who knows German, and definitely you're part of the community. You guys can talk, and he'll tell you everything that's wrong with your models. All right. I think that we've covered enough of Qwen. Folks, incredible release. You guys should definitely give those models a try. The smaller ones are very well performant, but obviously we're getting to a point where a 72 billion parameter model beats Llama 3.1405B on multiple benchmarks. It's super, super cool. Junyang, as always, thank you for releasing this. Thank you for contributing to open source. Feel free to stick around with us because we're going to talk about some stuff that I would love to hear from you as well. I saw some comments from you that you guys were also excited about test time compute and different chain of thought implementation stuff. Looking forward to some work that you guys are going to release in that area.
And I wanted to say thank you for releasing the base models as well, because then everyone else can fine tune and do their own stuff. It also allows a lot of competition in the leaderboard as well.
Yeah, sure. We always release both base and instruct, and also the quantized model, including GPTQ, AWQ, and GGUFs. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there are a lot of checkpoints. Yeah.
A lot of checkpoints that was released. And so if folks want to try out the base models, they're on Hugging Face. And if you have questions for Justin, please tag them in the comments as well. And now I think, given that I briefly mentioned the test time compute context and concept, I would love to move forward to our next part of the conversation, briefly covering in the open source as well. We're going to get to Qt AI after this. I just want to make sure that we are acknowledging our guests here as well. Yesterday, we, or at least some of us in San Francisco, met in the GitHub offices. I actually flew out for this. I was supposed to come tomorrow, but I flew out for this. And there was a few announcements from the folks at Nous Research. Folks who follow ThursdAI know Nous Research for a while now. We've been friendly. We've highlighted the Hermes models, but we have tuning in from their secret location somewhere in San Francisco, Karan, the co-founder, and Shannon Sands, that both kind of participated in a very big release, very significant jump yesterday in capabilities. And I'll just set the stage for our conversation like this. Last week, when O1 was released, there was the new concept that was introduced to everyone, at least new concept to folks who are not as deep into building these models, called test time compute or inference time compute, where instead of just scaling the models by parameters and hardware when you train them, you can also scale their intelligence by providing them more time to think, have them dump more tokens. Actually, some folks from OpenAI, when they released it, they said this is like the new scaling law. We barely had a chance to react to this because, again, OpenAI dropped O1 as we were here live, so we're reacting live. And now, a week later, I'm hearing some inference and test time compute related things from the folks at Nous Research. And I want to welcome Karan, first of all, and Shannon. And I want to ask you about... Let's start before the Forge, Karan. Let's start before the Forge. Let's talk about how is Nous Research doing, man?
We're good, man. We were really excited with NewsCon yesterday. It's really cool that a lot of people showed up to come support us, watch a bunch of open source people show off their projects like RCAI, Hugging Face, Outlines. Hayes Labs showed off their red teaming.
That was super cool, man. I need an intro to Hayes Labs because whatever they talked about, we really need to talk about on Thursday. I started to interrupt.
Yeah.
That was so dope.
No, 100%. Yeah, Leonard is brilliant. They did it. They did the red teaming for O1 preview. They do it for Anthropic as well. They're really great guys. So it was really cool to just see like the kind of community come out and just support the movement further and further. We were really happy about it, and we're enjoying having showcased a bunch of this stuff, and we'll probably do some more official release stuff and put the wait list out later today on the News Twitter.
Foreshadowing, waitlist for what? I will just say super quick that first of all, thank you for the invite. I love being there. News events are always fun, the backbite. And the fact that you brought like a bunch of friends from Hayes, for example, the person stands on stage and says, hey, we have an attack that's called biinjectional or something bijection that is basically impossible to protect from, and it's automatic, and the second a new model releases, it works, and it's reverse scaling laws. The better the model, the easier it is to fool with this attack, something like this. And I'm watching this and my eyes are like crawling on top of my head. So that was super cool. For folks who want to follow a little bit, I did a live thread. I know Swigs did a live thread as well, so I tagged this on the top. So first of all, thanks for throwing a NewsCon. It was great. At the end of NewsCon, though, you came up and you talked about Forge, which is something that you guys have released from News. And I have a T-shirt that I wore last night that has Forge on it. And I think that's T-shirt from last year at that party that we did after Dev Day. And Forge has been around for a while. You've been working for it for a while. Could you talk to us about what Forge is, what you announced yesterday? And maybe we can like tag Shannon in here because he also, I'm assuming he's the guy who runs, right? Forge?
Yes. Shannon is absolutely the chief architect behind Forge. He is the person who has made the entire project possible. It's his thesis that has really made Forge what it is, and his literal dev hours.
All right. So Shannon, over to you super quick. How do you introduce Forge, man? When people ask you, Shannon, what do you do at News Research? What do you tell them?
If you want the one-word answer, what we're going for with this, it's on the front-end side, it's Jarvis. There's a lot more ambitious things that people could already be doing with language models, and that we've been doing internally for quite a while at News. Putting something out there in the world and just breaking the ice on more advanced memory systems and better integrations with the LLMs. We're working on new sampling methods, all sorts of cool stuff, as well as, scaling inference time compute. Just really bringing a lot more awareness to the community around what you can do with those things. It's going to be also setting up, of course, the whole data flywheel effect and showing people what you can do with that in terms of synthetic data generation at scale and providing a platform for that. So, that's what really a lot of the thinking behind Forge was and getting this out there. So.
All right. So this is something you guys have worked for a while. Inference time compute is a new concept for many folks in here. Could you define this for some folks? What do you guys mean by inference time compute or test time compute?
So it's a new concept for a lot of people, but it's an old concept for us in a lot of ways. We've been playing with this internally for quite a while. So people have already been doing this in a more simpler way anyway, with things like chain of thought. So just prompting the model more carefully, think step by step, and you get slightly better results out of the model. So this is like the next step beyond that, where you actually take different samples from the model, from its outputs, and evaluate those in some way, and then you have continuations of the outputs that sort of follow on directly. That's a very sort of high-level viewpoint on it, and it encompasses a lot. So it's everything from your great big heavyweight search algorithms like MCTS, all the way down to a lot simpler things like thought itself would still, in some regards, be similar to that.
Yeah, the idea is you can horizontally parallelize a bunch of inferences, so you can have a bunch of attempts at solving a problem or answering a question or something like that horizontally. Many of them happen at the same time, and then you have some method of ranking or weighing or figuring out which one you like best, which one you want to keep going forward with, and then you go down vertically and you go down to the next step in the sequence. You learn from what you said in your first generation, from the one that you like the most, or the aggregate of the ones you like the most, or the average of the ones you like the most, however you want to value it. And then when you get to the next step, you do the horizontal thing again. And you just keep doing this compute optimal scaling, right? It's not just get 1,000 H100s and do your regular prompting. That's not what they're saying. It's really about compute optimal test time scaling. It's about being able to do this horizontal parallelization and then go down next in the sequence and continue on from there. And what methods can you do to basically make this as effective as possible as you add 10 horizontal nodes, 100 horizontal nodes, 1,000 horizontal nodes. You go at depth 3, you go to the depth 10, you go to the depth 100. That's what we're talking about.
And you also have some stats to back this up as well, right? One of the things that we noticed with the O1 release, we covered this briefly, but then afterwards a bunch of evals was releasing, there was competition math improvement significantly with O1. O1 specifically, because of the way the chain of thought works and because of the way the model thinks for longer, etc., the benefits in regular evals, as we know them, like the human eval, MMLU, etc., there were jumps in those evals for sure. But the huge jumps, the 700% whatever, like the crazy jumps happened in competition math. I'm looking at the stat here. Thanks for LDJ for sending this over. O1 from last week, O1 preview and O1 itself, which we didn't get. We only got O1 preview. Jumped from GPT-4o was 13% accuracy on competition math. AIME 2024, and O1 preview got to 56%, and then O1 got to 83%. Talk to me about oh, they got 44%. Yeah, 44% on pass one. Oh, yeah, because the chart is confusing. Okay, so talk to me about this AIME thing. What's special about this competition math, and why is it difficult for non-chain of thought models to just do by predicting next tokens? Why is it difficult, and what did you guys achieve there?
I wouldn't necessarily say non-chain of thought model can't do it. I think that you have to have, with math, you can take fundamental pieces and build up from there, right? It's something that if you have certain information, certain baseline pieces, you can reason your way to the correct answer. And we think that the kind of inference time scaling does not improve like performance across the board in all fronts so insanely, but rather that it improves the reasoning, because you're taking more tokens and you're using tokens in a more smart way to answer a question still from this base LLM, right? If you don't have external knowledge coming in, if you don't have historical information like this event happened on this year, or like a scientific factual information like this molecule is made up of these things, if you don't know something that actually had to be discovered by a human being, not just through reasoning, but through like actual measurement of the real world that we convert into a fact, right? Something like that. This isn't going to really improve that because the LLM needs to have some of that information.
Yep.
So when we did the GPQA diamond score with Hermes 70B, we were just behind Sonnet 3.5 and behind O1 preview and ahead of all the other models. And that boost that we got was very small, because even though you can now reason better about, given the question and the context, like how should I best answer this question with the information I have, there's still a limited amount of actual factual based information inside of Hermes 3.170b relative to something like Sonnet 3.5. So that factual information is still important, that the LLM underneath is still important. When it comes to reasoning, you can scale that though. So when we did Hermes without our reasoning chain of thought stuff at 70B, we got around 13.3%. We got about 2 questions wrong.
On the same AIME benchmark?
Yes, on the AIME 1 2024 benchmark. Yeah, we got about 13.3%. Once we activated the reasoning system, we scored a 46.7% on the AIME 1 eval. Yeah, just insane. And in terms of like why that happens is because like you can reason your way through math, right? You can reason your way through logic if you have decent priors, and the priors you need to like already have that reasoning going from like, token one, like one shot, like zero shot, is a lot more effort than putting in the fundamental pieces and then reasoning from there and letting the model like figure it out through this parallelized inference and sequential inference. And we noticed that when other people had done the AIME eval, they had noted they were doing it with a maximal test time compute. We don't know what the maximal test time compute means, because if you have a lot of H100s, you can run this for 1,000 depth or 10,000 depth. You could run it forever. We actually limited our depth to 10. We only sequenced out to 10, as in it only would continue to process and figure out what the answer was vertically to 10 turns at most with pass at one.
So that's the model itself doing 10 turns by itself, or is this like an agentic approach?
Yeah, it's using the system, right? So we generated only 3 nodes to select one from. So like from the first AIME question, the model would take in the question and then 3 times at the same time, try to figure out the answer, note what answer got the most of its check marks of the sub goals that it set for what it needs to answer right, continue from that best one, and take what it learned from the previous pass, from the previous turn, and go again, basically.
Karan, I just want to clarify something that I'm finding a little bit confusing. So Forge 70B, there's a new model now that you guys have in this Forge thing, right?
No, Forge 70B is just Hermes 3.170B
Oh,
using the existing system. Yes.
I see.
So we're actually just scoring with Hermes 3.1, which is available to everyone already. A simple, regular, good old 70B that we strap the system onto, and it's reasoning literally more than 3x's, at least according to Amy eval. So we're very proud of the idea that you can take something like one of these small models, 70B, not necessarily small, but locally runnable models, and we can scale it up to outperform everything on math, just using a system like this.
That's incredible. So talk to me about the system itself. What is it? Where can I access this? What's going on there? You showed a bunch of features in there as well. I would love to cover a few of them. But what is Forge is a inference system? That's how you call this?
Yeah, it'll come out both as API and as an app, but first we're just putting out this beta because we want people to break it, use it, tell us what's wrong, tell us what they like, etc. Right now, it's functions like a typical chat system, but you can see the full chain of thought. It has the capability to create and save function calls. It's constantly generating memories from your conversation for consistency of interaction. And actually, the memory system is very interesting because, as we noted, the model needs good facts to perform and have better performance on something like GPQA. You need good reasoning and you need good facts. And if you have a model that is small and doesn't really have as much information as a bigger one, but it's faster. If you have good retrieval and you have good memory, then you don't need those facts in the weights, right? You can just pull those facts. Now, of course, we didn't think it'd be fair to do evals with retrieval, but for your actual practical use, you can absolutely offset the lack of factual information by just using Forge and having it build up memories over time.
So you can just tell it. You can tell it some facts, yeah.
Or you can tell it to find out the fact. It'll go online and find the fact. Because of the reflex library, because of its tool library, it can build out function calls. It can build out skill trajectories and save them. And it can just learn, okay, you want me to scrape this thing? Let me figure out how to do scraping. That kind of thing.
So is there a code execution component to this as well?
Absolutely. Of course, there's a code interpreter at most steps when you're utilizing it. So we absolutely have code execution happening. It can build a back end out for you, build a front end out for you, give you the code for that. Absolutely.
This is quite an announcement, man. When can I play with this? This is my main question before we go to comments from people here.
We'll be basically tweeting out some of this information through the Nous Research Twitter, and we'll also be sharing the waitlist link. So we're going to just start rolling people in over the next few weeks because it's our first time putting out anything where we have to actually host, and we want to host everyone, right? We have a lot of complex infra that we've had to deploy this for, and we've been used to building things really locally or for ourselves. So since the first time we're going to cloud, we want to do careful load testing. We want to let people on procedurally. Maybe first we take 100 people, then another 100 on kind of a rolling basis until we can have everyone using it. So we want to start the rollout quite soon. We put the wait list out so we can start picking people to be the first testers, second testers, third testers, etc. I shared the link with you if you do want to share it, Alex.
I will,
we'll be posting it. Cool. We'll be posting it anyway.
We'll definitely add this to show notes for folks who are listening on the podcast, but definitely folks who are live here right now, you're getting some crazy live preview because the only folks who announced this to, I think yesterday, were just the 150 or so folks at the GitHub office that came to NewsCon. And now the follow-up is folks who are listening to ThursdAI, you also get to follow Karan and try your luck at the waitlisting as you guys scale your first kind of consumer product as well. Shannon, talk to me about the code execution stuff. I'm assuming that's not like a super easy thing to just build into this thing. Talk to me about this. What's going on here? Can I ask it to execute code for me? Can I paste like code? Talk to me about the complexities there.
Yeah, there is a lot of complexity behind the scene there. In essence, yes, you'll be able to paste in code and say, here's a function, add it to your tool library, and it will go ahead and add that to the tool library. So there's a lot of inspiration, although like heavily modernized, from some of the more traditional symbolic planners from the pre-ML AI era in that regard. We basically are wrapping up different functions within this tool library. They're associated as actions. And that way we can put test cases around them. We can have them evaluated with different preconditions and post-conditions. And you end up with a lot more certainty in the execution of whatever's happening. So having that sort of external validation just beyond the raw LLM outputs is something we found to be pretty important. So like, for example, in a math problem, I know people are playing around a lot with just RL models to evaluate the outputs of whatever they're trying to do. So we have a more objective measure of that success. Like we can set up a more formal structured domain model that's mapping out the current world state and the state of the environment, a set of goals that it must reach. And that way we can evaluate it a lot more accurately through the whole search process, or even just when you're talking to it in chat. Yeah, it's bringing together a lot of disparate threads in AI into a sort of a single cohesive platform, you might say. Yeah, so we're hoping it's going to be super powerful and work really well for people. It's already at the point where internally I'm sitting there trying to build Forge, and I'm like, I should use Forge, and then I remember I haven't finished building Forge. So yeah, just having these sort of, the first code interpreter is obviously Python, because everybody loves Python and models are trained on Python. There will be other code interpreters, like Nous have trained a lean model at some point, so there will be probably a lean interpreter in there at some point, people to do proof assistant stuff with, and more formal math. There'll be more formal logic evaluation of the facts that are in the knowledge base. We've got this insane roadmap of new features that are just going to be getting progressively rolled out. We've got about 2 years worth of work ahead of us. And a lot of this is coming down to just figuring out how we actually shovel this stuff into prod, because we've got a lot of really cool internal research projects that we've done. So the challenge is then to go, okay, how does this thing actually work at scale? Is this something that users are going to enjoy and find benefit from? And yeah, that's it. And at the same time, we are also trying to make the front end so it's usable for non-technical users. It's addressing a lot of complaints that we've heard around people's experiences with ChatGPT and Anthropic's.
One such complaint for many people is the fact that the chain of thought process that happens in O1 right now is obfuscated from people. Yeah. People cannot see what the model is actually doing. In fact,
it's ridiculous.
They're hiding it so much that there's a different model that reviews the chain of thought and summarizes it. So whatever we get is not the actual chain of thought. It's another model summarization of this. Not only that, people are getting banned by just asking, hey, what are your reasoning traces? People are literally getting banned.
The funny part is we basically have the same general pattern. There is still a summary that's given to the end user, because for non-technical users, they're not going to want to see this whole crazy MCTS thing.
MCTS,
it's just going to scare them. It's just going to scare them.
For folks.
Monte Carlo tree search. We've got a bunch of different kinds of planners in there, but the heaviest one for the hardest problems is Monte Carlo tree search. It's what Karan was discussing before. So you have multiple trajectories that you create. So you in a trivial sense, you sample the model 3 or 4 times, or however many times you want. You select the best answer using some kind of metric to measure the value of each of the potential later candidates, and then you just continue from there at each step. And you've got a couple of things to track how many times you visited different nodes, and you end up just being able to explore the whole space for a problem. But it's a super, super slow, super heavy algo, so there is some much faster planners and things that we've got in there as well.
So
if you're just wanting to use it for a normal chat.
You're summarizing that as well for the normies, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But here's the difference. You will still have access in the sidebar to the full chain of thought. There's a little visualizer, and it will show you the trajectory through the tree, and you'll be able to click on each of those nodes, and you'll be able to see exactly what the model was doing and why the node was selected and all of that kind of good stuff. And in the API endpoints, because we are, for the devs, still going to release a bunch of API endpoints at some point, again, you'll have access to the full trace. One of the big purposes behind this is to be able to grind out really nice synthetic data sets that everyone can use to continue to upgrade their models. There's a lot of people already experimenting with pipelines to create synthetic data. And there's all these sort of like little ad hoc solutions that people are coming up with. Having this sort of big central like engine for doing that is something we think will be pretty valuable for people. Yeah.
Thanks for coming up talking about Forge. I've been waiting for, since I have Letitia, we're waiting for to see what's the next step in news that's not about fine-tuning and training models, but like the actual kind of consumer-facing stuff. Qwen, I was very excited to see the chain of thought I can actually look and interact with. I really like the fact that you're like addressing the problems that people have with O1. The fact that you guys beat the AI me with the system, I think it's incredible. Anything else you want to add here for folks to get them excited to sign up for this waitlist? That we're going to drop a link for ThursdAI folks very soon here.
Absolutely. Since this is something happening at inference time, we did our evals with Hermes 70B. We wanted to use one of our own models, and we wanted to show that our mid-tier model can do this. What's important to note is two things I'd just like to say to wrap up. One would be that you can use any model with Forge, hypothetically. We are not making a product or a company where we are stuck to our model and we think it's the greatest thing of all time and screw all other models. We love Qwen. We love Llama. We love Mistral. We love OpenAI. We love Anthropic. We will support use of every single one of these models inside of Forge. So in the sense that at the moment, you won't be able to upload your own model, but rather that when we perform this work at the system, we can use multiple models. Because if we're parallelizing the inference, then I can have Sonnet make one chain, and I can have GPT-4 do one chain, and I can have Qwen do one chain, and I can have Hermes do one chain, and then I can do the sequencing and the MCTS, etc. with that. And this is actually more performant than using any of the one models individually. This is because instruct models are very bad at search. Instruct models are not good at looking at a wide search space today compared to the base model, compared to the one that hasn't been fine-tuned, that has a lot more diversity in what it can see, where it can steer, and how many options that it can present, how many paths it can go down. We realize different instruct models have like different search spaces around the same problem. If we did a mixture of agents where we took multiple different models and we also took a base model and an instruct model, etc., and then we performed our entire system on top of that, we actually get more performance. And this is something that scales too. And this is a kind of test time scaling, test time compute scaling that is not really being talked about by other labs because they cannot do it except with their own models. We are able to do this with anyone's model. We're model agnostic. So if tomorrow some new architecture comes out that destroys everything, we'll just throw it in and use it alongside the old one, and it'll be more performant. This is the kind of scaling that we're truly excited about. Yeah, that's just a little bit on what's up. We'll definitely be sharing. Oh, thanks for sharing the waitlist link. Yeah, the waitlist link is up here in this chat, and we'll be sharing more through the news channels as well.
Incredible. Folks, thank you for coming up. Wolfram, Nistan, LDJ, any final kind of questions to the folks here while we have them here before we move on?
Yeah, I'm Allison. I work in open source AI. I'm on Twitter. But yeah, so the problem space is super interesting. But since you can use any model, I think I've seen a lot of different approaches towards chain of thought at the tokenizer level. And I guess that's something that you're not doing. Is it actually at the prompting level and like a post-processing afterward? And if so, are you using any specific libraries to create those prompts and create that structure to do the search?
Sure.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'll say a little bit on my piece, and then Shannon can give you a probably better answer than me. But my 2 cents is we absolutely are doing things at the local, at the architecture level, and we plan on scaling on that. But that doesn't mean that we can't use the plethora of, like you said, search algorithms, the prompting techniques, using the code interpreter, stacking on other tools. We can still use all that with the API-based model. So we can simultaneously do things at the low level, and we can simultaneously work with API-based models. Because the thing is, like, you go from top to bottom, like architectural change, top P, temp, the search, any news sampler, a code interpreter, chain of thought, MCTS, like every single one of these things actually stacks. right? Our mentality is add more knobs, add more dials. If you tune them to the right parameters, they absolutely synergize. In terms of are we using any kind of libraries that are publicly available, etc., we really did all this shit by hand. But of course, every project has dependencies. When it comes to the actual search and the prompting, though, you could just look straight at Mr. Sands. He's literally soloed the whole thing.
Yeah, and so just to follow on from that as well, like the thing is that backwards compatibility was something we were mindful of, and the fact that people are going to want to use closed source models. So the first iteration is more about like sampling the model from the outside, and you have a careful set of prompts that are pre-set up, and you get your different outputs from that. However, as we say, we are working on different sampling methods that will roll a lot of that for newer models and models that you can host locally in this sense means inside the agent itself, that will be working on a token by token level. That's not going to be out for a little while though, and it's obviously not going to be compatible with stuff like GPT-4 or Sonnet or anything.
Yeah.
So a large part of what we're doing with Forge is it's going to be a big clearinghouse for a lot of our internal research projects. So this is just like setting up the field and getting the infra in place that we're going to need for a lot of other crazier things that are going to be dropping over the next few months. No, so right now, initially at launch, it won't be doing token by token, but it will be fairly soon after that on specific models.
Okay, just really quickly. So there are thinking tokens and reflection tokens, funny enough, in the technical report back when Hermes 3 was announced. And I saw somewhere in some screenshot, some group chat, that you guys had hit 70 GPQA on the thing. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because we know how capable the 70B is by itself.
Yeah,
so,
we did not hit 70 on GPQA. I don't know where you saw that. We did GPQA Diamond, the 198 question subset, right? That same one that was done with O1, the hardest subset, the one that scientists came together and said, this is the subset that we can all agree on the answer, but the average person would have a lot of trouble figuring out. So from that subset, our actual score was 55.6%, Niston. I would have loved to get 70. But the reason we didn't see this big jump, again, is because there is a lack. Like, even if we have all the thinking tokens in the world, Niston, like, we can reason to a certain degree about what the right answer is. But if I don't have certain, like, prior information inside the LLM, then I cannot get to necessarily answering, like, as well as if I had that information. There's factual information, and then there's like reasoning-based information, right? There's the width and there's the depth. And we are basically saying you can forget the width. Other people will provide width. Qwen has great width. OpenAI has great width. Hermes 4 will have great width, right? Like, people will continue to do things that improve on that. We're focused on the depth.
Did you just announce Hermes 4 right here on stage?
No, it doesn't even. It's not even started.
No, okay, cool.
Just making
sure.
No, definitely not.
All right.
Yeah, no, it doesn't exist. I was just saying more from the POV of people will work on expanding the knowledge base of models, but whether the model is big or small, we can increase its reasoning and we can increase that depth. And we don't really care too much on the Forge team about that width, because the kind of memory and retrieval and function calling capabilities that we've been building, where it remembers and stores that width-based information, lets us make up for that. And you can't make up for depth in the same way.
Awesome. All right, folks, thanks for coming up. I know it was early. I know you had like a party yesterday. It was awesome to also get invited to your NewsCon as well. Folks in the audience who are listening to this, if all of this got you excited, as it damn well should, the waitlist is up there. Feel free to register. You got some alpha before everybody else, before the News Research announces this publicly. As always, really appreciate the friendship between News Research and ThursdAI, the community. We love you guys and keep rocking at this. Karan and Shannon, thanks for coming up. As we move forward, because we have a little bit more in the open source, and then we're going to jump and talk about some video stuff as well here as well. And I think the next thing in the open source stuff that we haven't covered is Qt.ai open sources Moshi. And I think that's a very interesting release, even though the model itself is pretty dumb. I don't know if you guys remember back when Moshi was released from Qt.ai. Qt.ai is this French company. They raised like a gazillion amounts of money without doing a bunch of stuff from like Eric Schmidt and some other folks. And then they just out of the blue said, hey, we have this like foundational end-to-end voice chat model. This was fairly, I don't know, maybe a month after GPT-4o, the Omni version, the voice model was announced. And while everybody's still waiting for the advanced voice access, I have it thanks to a friend of the pod that tagged me in, but many people are still waiting for this incredible conversation ability. These folks came out and said, hey, we're able to achieve something called full duplexity, which is the model is listening to you while it's speaking with a 7.6 billion parameter or something, which is a speech-to-speech foundation model. They released it back then. They said they're going to open source and help the community achieve this type of conversational ability. And then basically we waited, and we waited until this week where they finally send us a technical report. There's a paper now, and they have open sourced multiple things. First of all, they open sourced the Moshi model itself. I think 2 fine-tuned models, Moshiko and Moshika. I don't know why there's 2, but definitely there's 2. With a CC BY license, so like non-commercial, but you can use this. And they also released a codec. What was it called? Mimi? Yeah, the Mimi codec as well, that allows for this kind of craziness to happen. Because it's not only the model itself that does the understanding. We've talked about the ability to understand voice as well. With folks are trying to bake this into Llama, there's a bunch of stuff as well. They have a specific codec that allows for this to happen. They have transformer upgrades there as well. A bunch of technical stuff that's very interesting. The main interesting thing is that when you talk to this model, it reacts almost in real time, sometimes too fast. I don't know if you folks here had a chance. Wolfram, you had a chance to play with Moshi at this point already? Have you chatted with it?
Yeah, I made it work on my system. And as you said, it's uncanny when you don't even realize you finished speaking and it already starts to answer. That is such a weird feeling.
It's so weird. Fast. It's so weird, right? You're asking, tell me a story about this. And okay, I will tell you a story. It already starts telling you the story before you finished your sentence. But then interrupting it is possible, but not that great as well. Was that your experience as well? Even though like it's supposed to support interruptions?
Yeah. Yes, and sometimes it just didn't talk back. So I was waiting that it said something and it didn't, so I had to continue talking to make it speak again.
It is very opinionated in the way that it reacts. But I think the coolest thing about this release is how much technical info they dumped in there. Because this is a very small model, and obviously it's not going to be, like we heard from Karan here before, the smaller the model is, the less performant or knowledge about the world it has. This is definitely a fairly small model, but technically very impressive. Folks on stage, Junyang, did you have a chance to look at Moshi, or are you too busy with your own releases? What's your take on this end-to-end voice-based approaches? And do you guys are looking at this in terms of implementing this in something that you guys are building?
Yeah, Moshi is really great at generating the human. I didn't try it yet, but I'll try it today to see how it works. Yeah, we are working on it. We are looking into an end-to-end framework to see that how we can generate the audio within end-to-end, something like token. Yeah, not just like pipeline stuff. Yeah, I think this will be a transforming stuff.
I think maybe what you said is maybe needs some clarification to the audience. The difference between pipeline and token that the models understand. Pipeline, we've had this for a while. Pipeline means you have a speech-to-text model in the front, something like maybe Whisper, etc. It translates everything you say into text, and then you send those texts into an LLM, it answers, and then you use some voice generation, etc. to generate that text. Moshi is a model that does all of this inside the model itself. It understands... I actually don't know if it understands emotion like other models was supposed to do, 4o was supposed to do, because I haven't seen this. But Moshi does all of this within the model itself on the token level, which is, first of all, significantly faster. It achieves theoretical 160-something milliseconds. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at the extreme performance claims that they had, but even their hosted version, back then when they hosted like the US version, it said specifically, you would start getting answers with around 200 milliseconds back after it heard you and started generating tokens, which is damn impressive. And creating a pipeline that does this is way harder than just doing one model. Was that, Nistan, your experience as well? Or was it slower over at Canada?
Look, it was responsive, but it was pretty. Sorry, it was pretty dumb.
No, it's dumb. It's absolutely. You don't have to be sorry. The model itself is stupid.
It's good. I think that's why they released it. So I was looking at their paper, and I think they've only trained it on 1 or 2 trillion tokens, and not trained it anywhere long enough for this job. So I think they're probably hoping that the community will like just make it much better, and people probably will. But yeah, as is, I'm pretty confident they're gonna release something that's like way better at this. And there are a few other approaches to what they're doing, but they also released their speech codex as well, which is very nice of them because other people can build their own models on top of it.
So the whole release is there's a text language model there called Helium, and then there's an audio codec called Mimi in there as well, which is also open source, which now that people can just try to merge into. I don't know if the merging techniques works here, but they can merge this into other much larger models, hopefully, and we'll start being able to chat with models in a very natural way. When it does work, and it doesn't often work as well as like advanced voice mode. Obviously, that's a very polished kind of product and still hasn't rolled out to many people. When it does work, it feels super cool. You just talk to a model, it starts talking back. Wolfram, I think we both agree on this. The very rare glimpses when it does work, it just feels really cool.
It is what they delivered is not the important thing, but the potential that they unlocked and that they showed us and all this material around it. So this is what will be the future when we can talk to AI. Yes.
And just maybe worth noting as well that there's not a lot of end-to-end audio models out there. We know the GPT-4o is one. Project Astra from Google, if you guys remember back when Google I was at May, I went there, they showcased like you had to wait in line, they put you in a specific testing room, whatever. They showcased Project Astra. Project Astra is basically something like this. Back then, Project Astra wasn't even end-to-end foundational as well. I think it generated voice with a text-to-speech model because they didn't end up training this. This is a very small model, runs on your devices, end-to-end foundational. It generates the voice and understands, and it does it at the same time. So it's not a system. Scaling this up logic-wise would be super, super cool. So shout out to folks at Moshi who we tried to reach out. Unfortunately, maybe too late, they were busy. But if you folks are in the audience, first of all, if anybody from QTI is listening to this, we would love to chat with you. So come up. But if you're in the audience and you know somebody from QTI, please let us know. And please connect me. So I would love to host those folks from QTI to talk about Moshi and the advancements they did there. Anything else that I'm missing on Moshi and QTI? Oh, you can try this out. MoshiChat.com or Moshi.chat, I think, is still up, and you can try this out. But obviously, you can try it with the MLX if you have a Mac, or I think a PC as well. But if you have a Mac, you can just run this on your machine because it's tiny. 7.6 billion parameter model. It's super tiny. You won't get super excited, but you can run this. I think that's it, right? Yeah, we're an hour 20. So yeah, we're moving forward a little bit, folks. So we have to talk about video. The last thing, I almost got the researcher from that person, and then he dropped, unfortunately. But Microsoft released something called Green MoE. Listen, you have had the chance to look at this, LDJ? The green conventional, so gradient informed MoEs. This is a new thing that I have literally read about yesterday.
Go, DJ.
Yeah, I was looking at it a bit, and it seems I looked at some of the inferences and examples that they showed in the paper and some details, and it actually is very interesting how it is like a long chain of thought style similar to O1. And there's people that say things like Microsoft is giving hints on purpose of this and that, and some funny conspiracies like that. But yeah, it seems really interesting. It seems like it's really good at taking longer time to think just by doing a lot of chain of thought for more STEM-related subjects and really high score in MMLU.
Oh, it looks like we have Lin Yuan, the researcher behind this paper, listening to us as well. Yuan, if you are listening to this, please hit this microphone button on the top left, so we'll bring you up and chat about gradient informed MoE. There he is. Hi, folks, this is the magic of ThursdAI. Leo, welcome to the stage. First time here. Feel free to introduce yourself to the folks and tell us how much time you have for this brief interview, impromptu interview.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me here. So I'm Liyuan Liu, and I usually go by Lucas. I'm a researcher at Microsoft Research Redmond, and we have been working on the gradient estimation for discrete variables for a long time. And obviously, one kind of application for that research is on the mixture of expert. And we have applied to our kind of gradient estimation method to the mixture of expert training with some adaptations. So what we can do now is we can do gradient descent with a proper gradient estimation. And we found that it is super useful to do. And besides the performance that it's good, we have some observations that expert trained in this way are more diverse and have real expertise. And also it has automatically discovered some structure that is usually referred as the shield expert or residual expert. But overall, I feel with gradient estimation, you can just do gradient descent for MoE just as the dense model. Yeah, that's pretty much an overview.
That's super cool. Very tiny model as well, right? 6.6 active parameters. Could you talk about a little bit about the architecture of Green MoE and also the training? It looks like you trained it on the same Phi dataset. Is that, am I understanding correctly?
Yes, we purposely choose the same dataset as Phi3 due to two reasons. So one is in this way we can do some semi-controlled experiments to compare with dense model, and we can fully agree that the Phi3, the dense Phi 3.5 team of L-tree, so they are strong baselines. By comparing with them, we can have more insights on the scaling of MoE. And on the other hand, the reality is the only way we can get enough GPU is to collaborate with the Phi 3.5 team and Phi 3 team so that we can train this model as this reasonably scaled.
And you have an example in your thread that I'm going to add here that it does the strawberry question as well, and it gets correctly. So is there like a chain of thought thing happening behind the scenes for this model as well, for this MoE? Like how are you getting the same results with a fairly tiny model?
That's a very good question. So the data of the Phi 3 data is special, as many of, and also it has been discussed in the Phi 3 kind of the tech report. They adopt some kind of the textbook approach, and I'm not allowed to talk too much about that because that's not my study. But the data is that special.
Yeah, we covered, just for context for folks, we covered Phi 3 multiple times at this point. I think it's called Tiny Stories or Textbooks is All You Need, something like this in terms of building the data set that is structured based on how textbooks are built, and very special because of this, the very tiny Phi models are getting very incredible performance. But yeah, go ahead, Leon. Lucas, go ahead.
Yes, and as to the capacity of the model, although it only has 6.6 active parameters, but the total parameter of that model is 44, which is a lot. And because of that, we believe the capacity of that model is actually a lot. And in the training, for example, the training loss is much lower than the dense model, which is expected because it's MoE. And also, many kind of the benchmarks, we observed that this MoE model actually performs much better than the dense model that even has 14B active parameters. And also because of specificity of the data set, we observed that this model is reasonably good on the reasoning and math. And I feel this kind of the questions related to this kind of the genre, the MoE is strong.
Awesome. LDJ, you have a follow-up question here? Go ahead and then listen.
Sorry, the hand is up. I already said what I was going to say earlier.
I see. Okay. Nistan, go ahead.
I see that is the same. Is this pretty much the same architecture as the Phi 3 MoE, but with a different, because it looks is the same architecture, but in the config is different. So how does it differ?
It is a good question. Okay. So first, I can confirm the architecture it's almost the same, other than the long rope, because the Phi 3.5 MoE adopt the long rope technique for the long context. So that's basically the only difference on the architecture. As to the difference of the model, so this is also the tricky part. So we have been trying to release this model for a long time, and I can only share that the exact sentence that a different post-training and mid-training has been done with a focus of multilingual and long context. And that model has been released as Phi 3.5 MoE. And you can do analysis by comparing these models, but I cannot share. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe tell us a little bit about plans going forward for this model, and also maybe the license. I haven't seen the license yet. I know Phi is released under MIT. What's the license?
This is also MIT.
Oh, that's incredible. That's awesome.
So this is so moving forward. So like I mentioned, the training of this model actually concludes 3 months ago, and we have been keep improving the MoE technique since then. in the green MoE, we use the sparse mixture V2, and we are already developing the sparse mixture V3 and see some promising results. And the major thing that we are currently working on is it's on the more fine-grained experts. That is a larger number of experts and also a larger number of active experts. And there has additional kind of the difficulty that because you need to sample multiple experts and the sampling process is the resource replacement. And in this way, we observe that it cannot be well captured. At least it can be improved by doing something extra. And we are still working on this. And the main focus is on the kind of apply these techniques on the MoE training of a broader range.
Awesome. Lucas, thank you for coming up and talking about this. You're the lead author for this. Folks should definitely give you a follow and follow up with any more technical questions if they have this. But it's awesome to have this new architectures, or at least compared architecture with improved results release. Anything else you want to add here that we didn't ask you that's very interesting, or some exciting things you found while training this model that you haven't covered yet?
Probably just one thing, that we try to be open. So if you're interested in training MoE and met any problems, feel free to shoot us an email or chat. We will try our best to resolve and share anything that we can.
Amazing.
Okay. That will be all. Thanks for inviting.
Awesome. Lucas, thank you for coming up. It's always great. It's always great to shout out folks who just released the stuff that we're talking about. And when it happens impromptu like this and folks are ready to jump on and talk about the stuff, I really appreciate it. So definitely, I consider you now a friend of the pod as well. And folks should give you a follow as well. And I think that this concludes our open source area. I think we've covered most of the stuff besides the NVIDIA NVLM. I guess my question is for Nista and maybe Junyang. Is there a reason to talk about NVLM now that we have the 72 billion parameter Qwen VL released? Because they're claiming that they're like a frontier class multimodal LLMs, but I'm not sure that I'm like seeing their comparisons. Just for context for folks, yesterday, folks from NVIDIA released NVLM 1.0. Thanks, Wolfram, for pointing this out. I missed it completely. And then they basically say frontier class multimodals achieve state-of-the-art results on vision language tasks, rivaling leading proprietary models and open source models, and they did not include Qwen VL in the comparison. I actually don't know how those models compare to Qwen VL, but we definitely should at least chat about them. What are you guys' thoughts about this NVLM?
I don't see it on the Hugging Face, so I don't know.
Oh, model weights were not dropped. It's just an announcement. Boo NVIDIA. Okay. Junya, what's your take on this? Have you ever had a chance to look, or were you too busy releasing and actually giving people open weights?
Yeah, I think yesterday I just heard about this model. My colleagues told me about this. I just noticed the parameter 72B, so I'm very interested which language model they are using, because there is only one 72B. and I just checked the report. It is very short, and I think they did not compare us. For example, their MMLU is around 56, and our MMLU is actually around 64.5. Yeah, we might need some time to wait for the model release to really check how it performs. I think it's very good at OCR, so we might have some comparison and try.
On OCR bench, you mean, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they're getting 853 on OCR bench, which I think you guys are up there as well. But they didn't compare to Qwen VL, which is a shame. They compared to intern. Okay, but because they didn't have any model weights, this is just an announcement of, hey, we're about to do something. So I guess we can skip forward. And Nate, unless you have a comment here that you came up to tell us about this model, I think we can go forward.
Yeah, no, all I wanted to say was I feel like with every major release, they always choose 3 or 4 of the 10 frontier models and the 3 or 4 of the benchmarks to show their like superiority. And it's always ridiculous because they leave out the 4 models that do better than them.
Yeah, that tends to happen when you don't release the best model as well. But I appreciate the comment, and thanks for coming up and saying this. All right, folks, I think this does conclude the open source area. We've talked about this. We had multiple interviews as well, but it's more than an hour and a half into the show. So let me do a quick reset, and let's move on to the next piece of our show. All right, a quick reset to the show. We're an hour and a half into the show. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. Weights and Biases is the company that brings you this show from week to week because, as it turns out, being just a podcaster is not very a lucrative business unless you're Lex Friedman. But Weights and Biases is in charge of the fact that I'm coming back to you week from week. This is part of my job now to bring you all these news AI updates as well, but also to educate you on everything that Weights and Biases does, which is a corner that I have here that's called This Week's Buzz. And in this week's Buzz, I have two updates for you. One of them you heard me say about our hackathon from week after week after week. But for new folks here, if you're in San Francisco or in the area and you want to come hack with us and build very cool things with LLMs as a judge, build LLMs as a judge, we have a hackathon in Weights and Biases' office. We're going to fully cater this as well. But don't come just for food, come to actually hack. First 20 seconds, so basically starting Saturday. The registration is still open. We still have a few more spaces in the office to fill in seats. So if you have a team, if you have an idea and you want to build, improve on, or build a UI for LLM as a judge, or use new models that were just released and compare the Qwen 2.5 models that they just released to, I don't know, the 01 example from OpenAI, etc. If you have any ideas about how to improve LLMs as a judge, this hackathon is for you. You're more than welcome to join. The judges are going to be awesome. There's going to be human judges. There's not going to be any LLM as a judge judging the hackathon itself, but there's only going to be awesome human judges. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great fun. I'm going to MC this. I'm not judging this time, but I think it's going to be awesome. So if you're in the area, please follow my profile. I'll send the link as well. It'll be in the show notes, but basically lou.ma/judge, lou.ma/judge, and come join us in the hackathon. It's in 2 days, and this is the reason why I'm in San Francisco right now. An additional thing that happens in Weights and Biases is we're about to release, or have already released, but I think we're about to release our RAG course together with Cohere and Weaviate. We've hit a little snag. The APIs has changed, but we're fixing this. And but we have like more than, I think, 2,000 people signed up for this course. It's called Advanced RAG Course, and it's live now. It's about to go live on our Weights and Biases courses platform, 1b.courses. You'll see it there. You can pre-register right now. You'll get an email once it's live. Incredible folks from Cohere and Weaviate, including two of my teammates, Bharat and Ayush, are basically going to teach you everything that is there to teach about building RAG systems from hero to zero, basically, and with advanced techniques as well in there. And so if that's something that you haven't yet caught up on, or is that maybe you want to see some of the more advanced techniques, folks like Cohere work with multiple companies trying to implement RAG systems. Obviously, Command R Plus are incredible models for those purposes. They have re-ranking as well at Cohere. Weaviate, the folks at Weaviate are obviously know a thing or two about vector databases as well. We also have observability tooling that we can showcase. I think it's part of the course as well. And this is likely why tons of people are sharing this course already before we even release this. 1b.me/courses or 1b/courses, one of those. I'll add the links to the show notes as well. If you can't find it, please DM me as well. I'll just send you a link. Very well built up course. I was participating in reviewing some of the material and saw how hard my colleagues worked on recording this. And it's all for free for you guys on our courses platform, which is growing. There's more and more courses over there. Definitely worth checking this out. This is everything that happens in Weights and Biases this week. We have built something internally, just as we prepare for the hackathon, just to show people, hey, here's some of the stuff that you guys may build in this hackathon. We've built something that helps you generate evals, and it's super cool. It's based on some research from some of the coolest folks in the space. It's called Who's Validating the Validators from Shreya Shankar. Some people may know her. She was presenting an AI engineer as well. So we've built something that's based on this, and we're about to drop an open source evaluation improvement thing built with FastHTML from answer.ai, and so that's about to drop as well. Look out for that on my profile. I don't judge too much the front end. I built it. FastHTML is new for me as well, but I think it's super, super cool. And we're about to drop this as an open source as well. All you need is Weights and Biases key, and you'll be able to use whatever traces you have on production and generate evals for them, which is at least a starting point for you to actually build evaluations for your products as well. So definitely worth checking this out. If you're not want to participate, definitely follow me. I will be posting a thread about the winners and the best projects out of this hackathon. I'm hoping that we'll all learn, and it's going to be awesome. I think we're moving on. In the big companies, LLMs, we don't have that much stuff to talk about besides the week with 01. We had a week. exactly a week since O1 was released. We talked about multiple stuff O1 related at this point, right? We've talked with news folks about Forge and chain of thought reasoning built into their system, but it's a system, it's not a model. O1 has been out for a week, and we have multiple folks here that used it already at this point, and I want to do some community service for the members of the community who are listening and maybe haven't had the chance to try this, or maybe play with this a little bit, and just talk about O1. Because we did get a new model last week, and we're scrambling to understand what this is, etc. And now it's been out for a week, so I think we'll start with the fact that LM6 Arena has released an update for O1 Preview and O1 Mini. Just as a reminder, O1 is a new model. It's not a system. It's a new model. It's a reasoning model. Internally, I think they still call the GPT-4o with reasoning, and then they changed it to O1. But it's a new model that has chain of thought built in with, I guess, reinforcement learning. They built this data set or something like this. And it reasons for a while, and it thinks the chain of thought process that happens inside the model. It happens inside the model. We don't get to see it, because it's a competitive advantage for OpenAI, so they don't want people to scrape and then basically distill this to other models in open source. So now the chain of thought process that you see as a user is basically summarization, but the model thinks, reasons, and achieves incredible performance on this Math Olympiad benchmark that we talked about, AI ME, and achieves basically number one spot by significant margin now on LM6 Arena as well. And I think we saw from across the board that whatever people was waiting for in terms of Strawberry was actually proven that true. As far as I'm seeing vibes, and I'm going to go around the stage here with folks who are here to talk about O1, but as far as I'm seeing vibes-wise, OpenAI definitely hit it out of the park with this one. O1 Preview is not the full O1, by the way. O1 Preview is like the smaller version of O1, is number one on LM6 on all categories. And very surprisingly, O1 Mini, which is a smaller, faster model, is number 2 everywhere and number 1 in technical areas. So O1 Mini actually beats O1 Preview on multiple stuff like coding as well, and generally it's number 2 overall. I've seen from across the board, not only from LMCs, but across the board from other folks as well. Friend of the pod, Swix, host of Latent Space, and the guy who provided the space for today's recording, also has the AI newsletter. And he said that O1 was the first, I think I saw this like literally today. He said O1 destroys LM6 Arena, and he said for the first time ever, an LLM has been able to 100% match and accurately report what we consider to be the top stories of the day without our intervention. So basically, AI News, if you haven't signed up to AI News, the URL is ainews.com, I think, something like this, or buttondown.com/AI News. Swix sends a daily newsletter. Daily. I don't know why he does it and how he does it, but he sends a daily newsletter, and O1, and basically that newsletter scours Discord, scours Twitter, scours the local llama and some other subreddits, and tries to summarize the best news for you. Basically what we do here as people, they try to do with LLMs every day, and he basically says for the first time ever, LLM has been able to 100% match the most important, the most valuable news articles, and they're now using O1. It's way costlier, but it's very impressive. So this is my take on O1 and kind of my summary. Definitely not a drop-in replacement for GPT-4o. Especially if you're building like rack systems, it's slower significantly sometimes. It's way more expensive, but definitely a jump in capabilities and worth at least trying to figure out what's the new prompting. In addition to this, new prompting is required for this as well, because chain of thought is built in. You no longer have to tell it things step by step. Swix's suggestion is to do goal setting versus exactly telling you what to do, like we used to do with different models as well. But I wanted to hear from folks here on stage, their experience and kind of their vibe checks for O1. We can go one by one or by hand raising, whatever you want. Go ahead, Nistan. I saw you on mute, and then Wolfram.
So I'm going back and forth. At first, I wasn't that impressed, and then I was quite impressed because it solved one issue. But I keep running into it not finishing code, so that's really extremely annoying, and it's likely to be fixed. I don't know. I'm still not fully decided. Like once in a while, it's magic, but I just want like the old Sonnet 3.5 back. Like that's how, if I remember how I felt first with Sonnet 3.5, that felt like freaking magic when you were first using it. And this one is okay. Like it's an improvement, but it's not insane. I don't know. What do other people think?
Yeah, Wolfram, go ahead. What's your take? What's the community over there where you sit thinks about this release?
Yeah, its reasoning is a step in the right direction. But what I find very concerning, and that was on Reddit a big topic as well, is that they are threatening to ban paying customers for asking the model how it arrived at its conclusions.
Yep.
Which is a very bad precedent. If everybody is doing that, the AI gives you an answer and you can't even ask how it got there. That is the wrong direction. I think it is all the more important that we understand how they arrive at their reasoning and the outcome that they give us, which Perplexity, for example, does with its sources. So that is the right step. And that is also why I'm not so impressed with OpenAI's offering, because I'm used to Perplexity doing all this plan it does when it does research for you. And so it's not really new what OpenAI is doing for me in that part. Maybe it's a new model. It's a single model, they say, and I don't even trust them with that claim, because how can it be a single model if they say it is unaligned in the reasoning steps, but it is aligned in the final output? How is that possible? I have not heard of a model that can be aligned and unaligned at the same time, depending where it is. So I don't trust them with that. Maybe it's just a misdirection to keep the competition away. I don't know. It feels a bit weird. And the strawberry name reminds me of that composite fruit, which is like a mixture of expert model in a way. So I don't really trust them, I must say.
That
is my verdict.
That's a good take, definitely. And I think that the benefit of us having multiple experts here on stage with different opinions is exactly this as well. Nate, go ahead, and then LDJ. What's the take, Nate, on 01 since it was released?
I'm going to present a much more optimistic take. I think it's a step functioning increase. And the first time I really encountered this was I wanted to implement a new form of sampling that you could find on Hugging Face, contrastive sampling. And this is a very complicated, in-depth thing. And I pasted the Hugging Face implementation, the blog post about contrastive sampling, and the framework MLX I wanted to implement into, and it thinks for a minute, gives me the code, and there's 2 bugs, I fix it, and it works out of the box. And this is no trivial feat. It figures out not only what files to modify, it figures out exactly what modifications I need to make that I hadn't specified in the prompt in order to make sure everything works. And then I supply it with feedback on how I wanted to change it, and it immediately implements all of that feedback. And this is like code that would have taken me 3 or 4 hours to write. And I try this with Sonnet. It's not able to do this on the same level. And after this, I started doing a lot more testing with these very long horizon coding tasks that require a lot of reasoning. And you have to be very aware of the type of code you're generating. And it absolutely blew my mind. For instance, you can supply it with C code, ask it to convert the C code to SIMD, single instruction, multiple data, and it will do that 0 shot, and the program will actually run, and it will actually work. And if you try that with Sonnet, it just hallucinates hopelessly. There's 10 errors, or GPT-4o. And you can also try it with, like I asked it to make a smooth particle hydrodynamic fluid simulation using C. And I added a list of 10 constraints and it got all of those. And it's just really good at these long horizon coding tasks where you can't just have a good understanding of the code you're writing, but you have to understand how changing multiple files can impact code that's generated. And it really probably 10x 10x developer. I know that's so cringy, but it made implementing certain machine learning strategies 10 times faster in when I was doing some work with MLX earlier this week.
So in addition, I appreciate this take as well. And in addition to, so you're considering this a step function. I think reasoning is a big unlock here. Definitely, this is what they're trying to do. Previously, you would try to maybe do a chain of thought by yourself, but this model does it behind the scenes. I will call out that they had an AMA with the team that built the reasoning, Noam Brown and some other folks. And I had a few questions that I've asked. Specifically, I asked this question, whether this is a system, what we heard from Nous Research in the beginning of this pod, whether it's a system that runs chain of thought and does like back and forth questioning, or is it a model? They said this is a model. They have other models like reviewing and obfuscating the chain of thought itself. So what we're seeing back is like a different model's responses, but definitely this is a model with reasoning that they've trained the chain of thought into. The other jump in capabilities or jump in scaling is this inference time compute concept that we're now hearing about, and we've heard about in the beginning of the show as well, where they basically had a graph over there. We've talked about this graph a little bit, but now I want to like highlight about this. They had a graph over there that they basically showed that for some of the problems that they've had, the longer they let the model think for, the more correct it is, almost logarithmically linear. I think in log the graph was. Basically, the longer they ask the model to think for, the better it is at answering questions. And we currently don't have controls about how long the model thinks for, but they did answer that this is something that will come to users, maybe via the API. We'd be able to say, hey, for this task, think for longer. You'd be able to play with this as a parameter, like we are now playing with parameters, like basic parameters, like temperature, etc. So that's super, super interesting, because this basically is another kind of scaling paradigm compared to just scaling compute for training. LDJ, I see you commenting on this. I would love to hear your thoughts about this inference time compute as a scaling kind of in additional to training scaling and hardware scaling as well. We briefly touched upon this, but I think since last week, I think it's like very clear that this is like a new thing that people are very excited about.
Yeah, sure. To add on what you said about it being a single model, I think there's some experiments that people have done and some other things that seem to point to that, especially if when you're using the API, they actually charge you for all of the chain of thought tokens, even the ones that you don't have access to. But with that information, you can then calculate roughly how many tokens per second is it doing. And if it's doing many in parallel at the same time, then the average tokens per second you would measure would be higher. But it actually seems like it actually might just be about the same token speed as GPT-4o, which would make sense if it's essentially continued trained or fine-tuned off GPT-4o and it's only doing a single stream at once. And so there's a lot of little details like that, and it seems like it's probably continued trained from that model. And just being able to scale reliably the inference compute and have the model just run for longer and longer, it really does seem to give obviously these huge boosts that we see in AMI and GPQA and other benchmarks. But there was actually a couple quotes I wanted to read from the blog post that I think some people missed, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
Alex.
go ahead. Yeah, please.
Just be really quick. Yeah.
Please.
So this quote I think is one of the most interesting ones. It says, through reinforcement learning, O1 learns to hone its chain of thought and refine the strategies it uses. It learns to recognize and correct its mistakes, learns to break down tricky steps into simpler ones, and learns to try a different approach when the current one isn't working. This process dramatically improves the model's ability to reason, end quote. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that they mentioned there, which is just, it's not just this new way of inferencing really, but the overall new type of training technique that they ended up developing for this. I think it really is a new branch and a direction that research should go now, where it's actually enabling this new way of training that can continually improve and essentially a way of like true reinforcement learning that RLHF wasn't doing before.
Yep. Thank you, LJ, for this addition. I definitely get the feeling that folks are still discovering what this model can do and for which task it's better. It looks like for creative writing it's not necessarily better, but I saw some folks saying at least for following your style, etc., is significantly is better. The limits that they had, people hit the limits like super, super quick, and it looks like they're improving the limits as well. I think you were restricted like a few messages per week or something, and then they extended on the API level. It looks like they're extending the limits as well. So I've definitely got a big one. And now like the top 5 models for LLM Arena is O1 Preview, GPT-4, ChatGPT 4o latest, O1 Mini or latest, and then Gemini 1.54 is no place number 5. So definitely the time in the sun the Gemini 1.5 team had was less than a week, and then OpenAI decided to say, no, you know what, we're back on top with 5 model releases, one after another, or 4 model releases, one after another. I think that's it that we wanted to cover for folks in the audience. If you want to share with us your experience with O1, better or not better, or for which use cases it's not better, definitely feel free to leave a comment either on here on the newsletter that you'll get. But very excited. So excited, though, that this is literally the only news that I have added to my big companies LLMs in this section. This is why we're talking about this at the end of the show as well. Nobody else released anything. They're all like shook from this release from OpenAI. I haven't seen anything else. Nistan, you haven't seen anything?
There is a release, and this guy had 3 likes in the last 2 days, and he made his own version of Cursor, which I thought was pretty funny. So I think he didn't want any attention. But I tried it and it works. It lets you use your. I asked them to just add something that lets you use your own API. But yeah, this thing has 2 likes and it ran. So I think I'm just gonna shill it right here.
Yeah, just stubs.
Yeah, it's called Stubs. I literally just checked it out like
Nice.
an hour ago. But he shipped. It works.
Speaking of Cursor, just like as a follow-up on O1 as well, I saw that, first of all, Cursor now supports O1 and O1 Mini and O1 Preview, and many folks are starting to consider like different approaches to how they are using these models in concert with other models as well. So many folks, because of the stuff that like NA just mentioned, because of the reasoning, many folks use O1 Preview as the architect, and then once it has all of the pieces in place, then kind of Claude can come in and do the individual pieces as well. So many folks are like trying a double approach where like the logic or the reasoning is required for cross function or cross files thinking, etc. But then for specific files, I think the regular LLMs are doing an incredible job in coding. Some folks are playing with different approaches like this, and that's just pretty cool. And I guess we'll see more stuff like this. All right, folks, we have 5 minutes left, and the last thing that I want to cover in 5 minutes is the video category. And GenAI video is blowing it up this week, and there's multiple announcements there that I just want to cover super quick because I'm very excited. I heard, I saw folks in the audience already react to some of these. We'll start with the open source one because we're like highlighting the open source. I don't know how to pronounce this. Qwen. This is a company that released Cog Video X previously. It's an open source video generation model. I will say this slowly again. Open source video generation model. I think the previous one that we've had in open source was Stable Video Diffusion, and there may be some others, but this seems to be like a very small, tiny one. It's a 5 billion parameter image to video, and it's now like the only / best open source image to video that we have. You can download, you can run this on your own machine, you can run this in Pinocchio if you're using Pinocchio as well. It generates videos from images, and you don't have to pay other companies. It's super cool, significantly super cool. Only it takes 180 seconds, 3 minutes on an A100, so it's probably going to take you way longer than this on your own machine, but still, it's pretty cool. They have a Hugging Face space. You can try this out. I'll add this to the show notes as well. Maximum prompts is 226 tokens, so not that long, and they generate 6 seconds videos. So it's pretty cool that you can now bake in video generations. I saw some of them. They look cool. They don't do like a full motion thing like we know that Sora does and some other of these do. But for example, taking a Flux image of yourself and animating this for like winks and etc. That works with open source now. And it's crazy because less than what I don't know when Sora was announced, March or something. We now have a 5 billion parameter model that does video at least decently. In addition to this open source stuff, the closed source stuff is moving forward. There's multiple news in there. First of all, YouTube is going to implement generative AI features in YouTube, not only image but also video. It's coming with a feature called Dream Screen. They're going to integrate Imagen 3, which is Google's recently released image diffusion model. It's not a model, it's like an API you can use as a product. But also their video model called VO, which I don't know if anybody has access to. I definitely don't have access to. I just saw it as a preview on Google I.O. Now they're talking about integrating this as a product into YouTube, which is considering the fact that, yeah, you can have Sora from OpenAI, but YouTube has multiple billions users around the world and creators. Folks will be able to use these generative AI features to actually generate short clips in Google YouTube Shorts as like background images for their shorts or some other stuff as part of the actual interface. And I think it's super cool because we're now seeing these previously novel UIs, novel models are now being baked into actual products and huge products like YouTube as well. And speaking of products that are going to be able to get built this week, all of the 3 kind of leading video models that we can have access to, so not Sora, not VO from DeepMind, are releasing their offerings via API. So both Runway and Dream Machine and Kling, which we've talked about, all 3 of them. I think Kling and Dream Machine came a week after week, and then Runway Gen 3 came 2 weeks later. This whole category is heating up. All of them now released text to video, and some of them even released image to video via API. So now, previously you had to go to their website, and now you can hit those APIs. Runway is still a waitlist, but Dream Machine, I think, is already available, and Kling is about to be available as well. You can now just request via API and get videos. It takes a while, so don't expect it to be like real time, but still, it's pretty cool. And if you're thinking about different approaches of building products with these videos, now it's possible. I think it's ridiculously cool, specifically because there are products already that kind of use these APIs behind the scenes, and now you'd be able to plug in all of those different models as well, which I'm reminded of. I think there was a announcement from Adobe a long time ago where a Premiere will add multiple video models, and you'd be able to choose from inside Premiere which video model. I think they even showcase Sora, if Sora ever comes, and anybody would be able to use Sora. And so now Adobe Premiere will probably integrate those as well. This is an assumption of mine. This is not a news article from this week. It's just something I remember that could happen. And two new things. Runway also announced a new video-to-video model, which is, I saw some folks react that it significantly improves the ability for you to control some of your generations, because you can record yourself doing a specific thing that you want to do and then generate it with a specific style with Runway. So video to video looks super, super cool. I really want to play with this as well. And Kling announced a motion brush. Runway had a motion brush for a while. I don't know if Runway has this on this latest generation. I don't believe so. Motion brush basically lets you tell the model what to generate in what area. And the video for motion brush, I'll add this to the show notes as well, for Kling is super cool. They have a cat in there. So you upload the image, and then with image segmentation, they're able to show you which objects you're able to control. And you basically control the motion that the image is going to generate. You basically click on the image of a cat, it segments out the cat, and then you make a motion with the brush. You just draw what the cat trajectory will be, and then you'll see the video generation of this cat jumping on that arc that you drew. And so you can basically direct now how these videos are generated and what they're showing. And I think that on its own is super cool. So definitely this category is heating up. Anything else I missed in this category that's interesting to folks? I think there was also DreamWorks integration. Yeah, go ahead, Nissan.
Oh no, there were a few other releases from the Hugging Face leaderboard, but you said DreamWorks?
Yeah, but not for video, you mean, right? Something that's LLM based?
Yeah.
Yeah,
not for video.
Yeah, so one last thing for video I wanted to mention is that Runway and I don't know if it's DreamWorks or somebody else, they announced an integration with, let me go find this super quick. Maybe somebody can remind me specifically. Integration with Lionsgate, not DreamWorks, Lionsgate. Runway announced that a first of its kind partnership with Lionsgate, which is a movie studio, to bring next generation of storytelling tools in the hands of the world's greatest storytellers. It looks like while fighting generative AI, Hollywood, at least parts of Hollywood, are trying to figure out that, hey, there's benefits to this as well. And the Runway now has a partnership with some of this. If I remember correctly, Sora and OpenAI also gave Sora examples to some creators. So we're about to see a lot more from this area of generative video. I think that's pretty much it for today. We're over 2 hours, and I think it's time to conclude. We'll do a short. Yeah, go ahead, Nistan, before we conclude. Sorry.
Yeah, just really quick. What else is on top of the leaderboard this week? Upstage, they released like a 22B. I think it's a merge of Mistral models. By the way, Mistral Small is actually a very good model for its size. Yeah. 22B. And the quants for it are out.
That was also this week, right? We skipped over this. They released a Pixtral last week. We've talked with Devendra Chaplot from Mistral last week. But this week they released the actual blog post with the Pixtral details. But they also released Mistral Small as well, right?
Yeah, and it's a 22B model, which is very good for its size. And there's a fine tune from Upstage. I think that looks like it's becoming more popular than the model itself, and I haven't checked it out. There is that. There were some data set releases. Argila released the one for the personas.
Was that fine people?
Fine personas. And also, just really quick. Also, our data set that Pharrell made, the Skunkworks reasoning one, also blew up, but it's been out for 2-3 months now. But yeah, that also went up on the leaderboard. And one more thing, there was, I think, Daniel here from the audience. He used Zenova's upscaler thing to I think he made some tool to detect disease in deer or in parks, and used like a satellite uploader with a tiny Raspberry Pi that like really compresses the images really tiny, and then upscales them the other end. Yeah, so that like forestry people and stuff can monitor like prion disease in deer, which I thought was pretty dope.
That's super cool.
And yeah, it's Daniel with the QR face in the audience, and so shout out to that. And I think that article blew up on one of the Hack.io sites. And and there's one more OCR model from StepFun AI. It looks like a 0.7B, and it looks like it's a very good tiny small model for character recognition. And that's about it from what else I have to cover. Sorry, Nate, you had something to say?
Yeah, the upstage model you're referring to isn't Mistral. It's upscaled from a Phi 3 medium.
From Phi.
Okay. Interesting. Good call. I was
and it had its day in the sun, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I just checked. Its benchmarks get absolutely obliterated by the 14 billion 2.5 Qwen. It beat the original Phi 3 medium, but the 14 billion Qwen beats it quite handily on most of the benchmarks I see presented here.
Which makes sense, as we talked about Qwen in the beginning. All right, folks, I think this is time for us to conclude ThursdAI for today. We've over 2 hours and 7 minutes. Let me do a quick TLDR for folks who missed some of the parts of ThursdAI. And I guess we didn't have any breaking news, but we had a lot of chats and a lot of conversation with folks who did some of the releases this week. And so let's do a TLDR and call it a week. Let's do it. I really appreciate everybody here on stage coming from week to week. And if you missed any part of the show, please sign in for ThursdAI.news on the newsletter and the podcast that you will get. As we said in the beginning, if you get any benefit from the show, if it's helpful for you, share it with a few friends. And if you want to leave us a 5-star review somewhere on Apple Podcasts, this will greatly help other folks discover and learn as well from this podcast. I'm very happy to bring you this week after week. This week I'm in San Francisco. Next week I'm going to be in Seattle. And still the show comes to you live. And with that, I think everybody, I wish you all a great Thursday and hopefully a lot more AI stuff happening over the weekend. And so we'll cover everything next week. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.